Ladies and gentlemen, friends, members of Slovenian Association for International Relations and members of Ifimes, it's my honor and pleasure to have among us today the former president of Indonesia, Madame, which we all well know, Madame Megawati Soekarnoputeri. She is mostly welcome. We invited her to give us, if I may say, to tell us a few words about non-aligned movement, the past, the present, and future. Of course, at the beginning, I would give the floor to our friend Zijad Bećirović, who will tell you a few words in Slovene language.
Spoštovana predsednica, nekdanja predsednica Republike Indonezije, gospa Megawati Soekarnoputeri, spoštovani podpredsednik parlamenta Republike Indonezije, njegova ekscelenca Pramono, Anung, Wibowo, spoštovani gospod Budimir Lončar, nekdanji zunanji minister SFRY. Lep pozdrav vsem skupaj. Kot vam je dr. Kunič povedal, današnji dogodek organizirata Slovensko društvo za mednarodne odnose in Mednarodni inštitut za bližnjevzhodne in balkanske študije v sodelovanju z veleposlaništvom Republike Indonezije na sedežem na Dunaju in z družbo Tetol v Ljubljani. In posebej bi pozdravil še veleposlanika Republike Indonezije v Sloveniji, ambasadora Puja in direktora družbe Tetol, gospoda Blaža Košoroka. Današnji dogodek oziroma seminar ima naslov Gibanje neuvrščenih včeraj, danes in jutri in je to tudi hkrati priložnost, da z uglednimi gosti, s nekdanjo predsednico Indonezije, podpredsednikom indonezijskega parlamenta in nekdanjim zunanjim ministrom SFRY in vsi skupaj spregovorimo na temo gibanja neuvrščenih oziroma kaj lahko pričakujemo od gibanja neuvrščenih in kaj je v bistvu dodana vrednost tega gibanja. Hvala vam še enkrat, da ste se udeležili in zdaj je beseda dr. Kuniču.
Thank you very much. But I would give the floor to His Excellency Ambassador of Indonesia, Mr. Puja. So please take the floor and just say a few words.
Hvala lepa. Dobar dan. Her Excellency, Madam Megawati Soekarnoputeri, the Honorable Vice Speaker of the Parliament, Mr. Pramono Anung, Excellency, the Foreign Minister Budimir Lončar, Ambassador Jožef Kunič, the President of Slovenian Council for Foreign Affairs, Dr. Zijad Bećirović, the Director of Ifimes, distinguished speakers, participants, ladies and gentlemen. First of all, I would like to thank the SDMO and Ifimes for extending the invitation to Madam Megawati Soekarnoputeri to be the keynote speaker in this seminar. I also would like to thank the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Slovenia and Tetol. All of them have played an indispensable role making this event being realized. Her Excellency Madam Megawati Soekarnoputeri is the center of gravity of our gathering today. Despite the extremely busy time she has in Jakarta as a politician and as the chairwoman of one of the biggest political parties in Indonesia, Her Excellency decided to accept your invitation. Therefore, Excellency, please accept our sincere thanks and gratitude. I believe that Madam Megawati has a very fond of memory of the non-aligned movement, not only because Her Excellency herself shares the value and principles of the non-aligned movement, but also because her father, the founding father of Indonesia, the first president, President Soekarno, was among the founding fathers of the non-aligned movement. In the very early period of her life, she had the luxury of time to meet and talk on issues of global concern with great leaders of that time, especially with the leaders from the newly independent countries, members of the non-aligned movement. All of these experiences has enabled her to internalize the core values of the non-aligned movement into her global visions. We recall that in 1961, he was the youngest delegation of the Republic of Indonesia in her age 14 years old, attending the non-aligned movement conference in Belgrade. Speaking about Madam Megawati, stronghold on non-aligned movement value, my memory goes back to the year of 2001, only a few days after the 9/11 tragedy in New York. She was on her way to attend the UN General Assembly. She decided to meet President George W. Bush Jr. to express her condolence and sympathy to the people of the United States for any terrorist act is a grave violation of humanity and unjustified. It was the first visit made by a leader from a predominantly Muslim country to the US right after the 9/11 tragedy. However, in her address before the UN General Assembly in New York, she emphasized that terrorism could not be eradicated unless we address the root causes, and among root causes is the unresolved issue of Palestine. Madam Megawati's participation in this seminar, together with His Excellency Mr. Budimir Lončar and the Honorable Mr. Pramono Anung, is indispensable. Her Excellency's profile fits very well into the topic of this seminar because she was part of the non-aligned movement in the past and present. Building on her contemplations of the non-aligned movements, past and present, I'm sure that through her address today, Her Excellency will make an important contribution to finding ways and means for the non-aligned movement to continue its important role in shaping the world politics as it has always played in the past. We may recall, Excellencies, distinguished participants, that the Bali commemorative declarations in 2011 outlined NAM's vision for the next 50 years, its determination to address the emerging challenges of the 21st century and reaffirm its robust commitment to the spirit of multilateralism. We attach so much hope in every step of this movement journey. The reason is that, inspired by the Bandung Principles and the Belgrade Conference, our movement has registered many achievements during these last 50 years. However, if we are to maintain and build on these contributions, we must recognize that our world today is vastly different from the day when our founding fathers met in Belgrade 50 years ago. It is feared that with the profound changes all over the world and rapid power shifts, one question remains: is non-aligned movement still relevant in the midst of increasing globalization and growing independence? I believe the address of Madam Megawati Soekarnoputeri this afternoon hopefully will answer these questions. New power centers with growing economic, military, and political resources are emerging. They also present new set of challenges that are non-traditional in nature, inherently transboundary, multifaceted, and interlinked in nature. Most of all, they cannot be exclusively addressed by national solutions. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, I believe, like two-sided coin, these challenges also present opportunities for non-aligned movement, and we simply must grab every opportunity there is for the betterment of the world community, where nations work in concert to address common challenges, and where conflicts are resolved through dialogue and diplomacy rather than through the use or threat of force. After all, we were to be agents of changes. Then many unresolved, sometimes dire issues should be seen as promising steps in rectifying given situation. In that spirit, we confirm the people's aspirations, the core principle behind non-aligned movement, and this in turn will enable us to be part of solution to global challenges, to be reliable partners. I wish you productive seminars and fruitful discussion. Hvala lepa.
Thank you, Your Excellency. Before I invite Her Excellency, the President, to the floor, I would like to inform you that she's going to speak in Bahasa Indonesia. In English? Okay, so thank you. So I invite Excellency, Madam President, to take the floor.
Ambassador Jožef Kunič, the President of SDMO, Dr. Zijad Bećirović, the Director of Ifimes, distinguished speakers, Excellencies, Gospe in Gospodie. At the outset, let me express my sincere thanks and gratitude to the Slovenian Association for International Relations and Institute for Middle East and Balkan Studies for inviting me to address this distinguished roundtable. It is my great honor to put forward my point of view on the topic that once had an important role in determining the course of history. My mind suddenly traveled back to the era of 51 years ago as I received the invitation from Ambassador Kunič to speak on the issue of non-aligned movement. In the year 1961, I was 14 years old and honored to be the youngest delegate of the first non-alignment movement summit in Belgrade. It was such a beautiful memory which I reminisce fondly, especially when accompanying my late father. The founding father and the first president of Indonesia, President Soekarno. He addressed the summit and was involved in discussions with the world's great leader of the time, such as President Joseph Broz Tito of Yugoslavia, President Gamal Abdel Nasser of Egypt, Prime Minister Jawaharlal Nehru of India, President Kwame Nkrumah of Ghana, and other leaders who are attending the summit. It is indeed an unforgettable memory, a knowledgeable experience that served as a guru in my journey of life as a politician. Distinguished participants, ladies and gentlemen, the history of a nation-state began with the Peace of Westphalia Treaties in 1648. They ended the long war of dynasty reign and religious nuance in Europe and resulted in the creation of a new system of political order in Europe, laid the foundation of modern concept of nation-state, a system based on respect to different faiths, ethnicities, and languages. Another significant history of nation-states was the convening of the Asian-African Conference in Bandung, Indonesia, in 1955. It was the first intercontinental conference in the history of mankind. I am proud that my country was the host of this conference. The conference resulted in a set of common causes and shared principles called Dasasila Bandung, the Bandung Declaration, or the 10 Principles of Bandung. Since then, Bandung Declaration has served as a source of inspiration for the nation in Asia, Africa, and Latin America in their pursuit for freedom and independence, and in their fight against colonialism and imperialism. Ladies and gentlemen, in only 2 decades after the Bandung Declaration was created, the world political shape has changed dramatically. Compared to only 30 nation-states existed outside Europe and America in 1955, there were more than 120 new countries emerged in Asia, Africa, and Latin America in 1970. Nowadays, except for Palestine, most of the countries in the world have gained their independence and political freedom. This clearly shows that Dasasila Bandung has served one of its main purposes. The convening of Asian African Conference in Bandung in 1955 was the first key step toward the road ahead for solidarity of newly independent countries and to lay down foundation for these countries' role in shaping the world's politics. The goal was eloquently reflected by President Sukarno in his closing remarks for the conference. And I quote, "May we continue on the way we have taken together, and may the Bandung Conference stay as a beacon guiding the future progress of Asia and Africa." President Sukarno gave a clearer demarcation in the rivalry situation in international politics between 2 power blocs, the liberal capitalist Western Bloc under US leadership and the socialist Eastern Bloc under Soviet Union command. President Sukarno also gave us an alternative path to the new emerging countries who didn't want to become object of domination and influence of the 2 blocs. This action was renewed as non-alignment movement. Thus, at 1st and 6 September 1961, 25 countries from Asia, Africa, and South Europe had laid down in important history in the international politics by held the first summit of the non-aligned movement countries in Belgrade, Yugoslavia. The choosing of Yugoslavia as the venue for the first summit was certainly justified for many reasons. Apart from its strategic geopolitical location, it was also known as the most moderate socialist country at that time. With my visit to Slovenia, a country which used to be part of former Yugoslavia, I witnessed the beauty and the warm characteristic of its people. I understand even more why this part of the globe has been chosen as the host of the first summit. In the heart of 2 competing blocs, imperialism was still embedded in the form of neo-imperialism. For no other reason than this, that President Sukarno had further developed his thesis to continue garnering solidarity of all newly independent countries across the globe for their common endeavor to free the world politics and its future from being driven by only 2 blocs. This resulted in the establishment of the so-called the new emerging forces of NEFOS as an antithesis to the so-called the old emerging forces or ODFOS. The genesis of Sukarno's NEFOS idea is the solidarity of the third world countries which, if strongly united, can create new movement, be it political and economic, that could take part substantially in shaping the world. It provided an alternative force to the existing forces at that time, the Western and the Eastern blocs, which were inherently colonialist. It was Sukarno's fond conviction that NEFOS could serve as a great force consist of progressive countries that are determined to build the world anew. A just world filled with friendly relationship among nations, peace and welfare, free from imperialism and colonialism, and free from exploitation de l'homme par l'homme et de nation par nation. Distinguished participants, ladies and gentlemen, I continue to contemplate in finding the nexus between Asia-Africa Conference, the non-aligned movement, and NEFOS, in which each of them came with strong political philosophy, interacting one another in dialectic nature. Apparently, I found the nexus is clear. Freedom and independence are the inalienable rights of every nation. Therefore, the colonialism has to be eradicated, for it is a grave violation to the principle of humanity and justice. This nexus should be the basis on which a new world order should be built. As President Sukarno himself has referred to in his famous remark address to the 1960 UN General Assembly under the title "To Build the World Anew," learning from the wisdom of history. I do believe that the non-aligned movement and the idea of NEFOS are two faces of the same coin in pursuit of a new world order. The two were built for a far-reaching vision. While the non-aligned movement is considered as the antithesis of the 20th century Cold War, the spirit of NEFOS is an alteration to the global system, especially to the world economic order, which is inherently unjust and driven by neoliberal school of thought. The spirit also fits to the challenges of the 21st century. This contemplation is very much in line with the dynamic in the non-aligned movement history. It could be found in the period of 1970s while continuing its fight against colonialism. NAM also extended its non-alignment scope to include the fight for regaining political and economical rights for the developing part of the world. In the same vein, the fourth NAM summit in Algiers in 1973 promoted the idea of a new international economic order that is more just and free for domination of any economic blocs. It is my view that the proposal made by the Algiers NAM summit reconfirmed the spirit of NEFOS. Ladies and gentlemen, as an institution, the NAM has experienced the ups and downs throughout its history. However, the spirit of NAM, a spirit for freedom and independence, will remain high, especially if put into the context of our current situation. Building on this spirit, the NAM has to redefine the vision of its movement in the rise of the 21st century. I am therefore putting forward my thought for the NAM to maintain its relevance, economic freedom and solidarity, and be made tangible through strengthened economic cooperation and alliance among the NAM countries on the basis of equality. Equally important to that end, and in view of the current global economy situation, which is full of loopholes, NAM has to create common cause to restructure the world economic order free from a manipulation-prone market to a more just system. I am not in any way to be against market economy. However, learning from our long economic history, I believe that in achieving a just economic system, a state has to regain its leading role and control over its economic system at large. Distinguished participants, I see the rise of BRICS, Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa, as a new emerging economic bloc to be an implementation of NEFO's idea in 21st century. Two of the BRICS members are also prominent members of NAM. Brazil and China are not members, but they are observers and share most of the NAM's principles. I know the formation of BRICS might not be triggered directly by NEFOS, but if NEFOS were to be implemented in this 21st century, a coalition of the third world economies, such as the case of the BRICS, would certainly be a model for it. Building an alternative to the existing established is the nature of all NAM countries. In closing, the spirit and value on which NAM has been formed by its founding fathers will continue to prevail. For my beloved father, President Soekarno, NAM's spirit has always become a source of energy in his political struggle. Although this had put him in a difficult situation, a harmony between words and deeds in pursuit of people welfare is indispensable for President Soekarno. This has been always the case for him, including in his involvement in the establishment of the non-aligned movement, a movement aimed at fighting for freedom and independence for all nations and creating a more just world. Many countries might not be in support of his cause, risking to be marginalized. He took risks anyway, and no other than for the betterment of humanity in his country and at large. I, my party, and I believe most of Indonesians will continue to promote his value, the same value he has shared to the world through the establishment of the non-aligned movement. It is my sincere hope that our discussion today will serve as a valuable reflection to you all, to the non-aligned movement countries, and to all humankind. May God give us, Slovenia and Indonesia, the best friendship richness ever existed between the two nations. Huala, lepa.
Thank you very much, Ms. President. Now I have the honor and pleasure as well to introduce former Minister of Foreign Affairs of Yugoslavia, His Excellency, Mr. Budimir Lončar. I give him the floor.
Mr. Chairman, ladies and gentlemen, first of all, I would like to thank very much the organizers for their kind invitation. It is my pleasure and privilege to be here with you today. I'm particularly pleased and even moved that among us is guest of honor, Madam Megawati Soekarnoputeri, the former president of Indonesia, daughter, as she pointed out several times, of great man, Sukarno, whom I had privilege not only to meet, but even share many items, including crossroad, not only of the world, but even crossroad of his own country. 50 years of existence of political movement, the most numerous in the history of mankind, is a historical phenomenon. The passage of time allows us to get a clear view of the origin and evolution of the online movement. The anniversary is the right time to recall its achievement and its shortcomings, to distinguish its lasting values from its failings. It is also an opportunity to raise some fundamental question about the movement's role in the history of the second half of the 20th century and about its contemporary challenges. The key question is the non-aligned policy still relevant? Madam President Megawati Soekarnoputeri answered to the question on very eloquent and very convincing way. But anyway, if I contribute further to clarify this question, I hope I will not be boring or less irritating to you. Before the first NAM conference, there were a number of developments that planted the seeds out of which the NAM policy and movement would eventually grow. The most important among them were the first Asian-African conference in Bandung in 1955, which was already mentioned. It proclaimed to the world that peace and liberty were indispensable. The conference adopted 10 principles of peaceful coexistence, which become the basic idea of philosophy and policy of nine movement, and who became to be the basic principle of new international system developed and established within United Nations. The Brioni meeting between President Tito Nasser and Prime Minister Nehru in 1956, it marks the beginning of their search for an alternative to the Cold War and the global bloc division. In New York, 1960, at the United Nations General Assembly, 5 leaders from 4 continents, Tito, Sukarno, Nasser, Nkrumah, and Prime Minister Nehru, addressed for the first time the protagonists of the Cold War directly. War, as well as international community, with one voice and common agenda. The 5 managed to draw the attention of the international community to the urgent need to ease the bloc tension because those were continually threatening peace and security in the world. They also insisted on the preeminent importance of the United Nations as the main international forum for for discussion and resolution of international problems, including the relation between the two superpowers. The 5 leaders highlighted their decision to organize an alternative to the bloc policy and the bipolar world and Cold War. I had a privilege to be part of people who assist and who were among these 5 historical persons. The selection of Belgrade as the venue of the first non-aligned conference in 1961 was an important symbol to the world. The Cold War tensions were namely the most acute in Europe. They were born. Therefore, a message had to be sent from Europe that the bipolar division and the Cold War confrontation could and should be substituted by the peaceful active coexistence on the basis of common interest with aim of strengthening the global peace and stability. It was in Belgrade that the principles of non-aligned policy were agreed upon and accepted. The dilemma between the unity organization and flexible system of joint action in accordance with agreed principle was resolved in favor of the latter. Certainly, we were aware, great leaders were aware, that it would be difficult to forge a common long-term agenda among the countries which were so varied in size, history, power, and priorities. But they did, not to think it was impossible. Belgrade became to be again conference venue 1989. It was a time of tectonic changes in the geopolitical landscape. The main reason dated the non-aligned movement, the bloc politics, and the bipolar division of the world was about to disappear. The movement had to adapt its strategy to new realities and to redirect its effort toward the creation of new democratic post-Cold War international order. Again, Cold War started in Europe. It was developed over there and end over there. And first conference was in Belgrade, because to be most convincing demonstration that alternative may be found just on the ground vis-à-vis protagonists of the Cold War. Now, when Cold War ended, then again, Belgrade was a desirable place to be in Europe to say that now, yesterday, until then, promoter of bloc policy of confrontation face new, not only opportunity, new obligation to work on the world without tension, a world which will be more harmonious, of the world of more equality, of the world who will serve to all countries who belongs to the international community. It means all members of United Nations. But the collapse of Yugoslavia at the time, who was in chair of the movement, was one of the handicap and one of the shortcomings and difficulties to carry out such new, huge switch of non-aligned movement, as well as world switch to the post-Cold War. Then Indonesia took over chairmanship as 10-1, and they were inspired by Belgrade's successful outcome it means 9 conferences. But they had to now carry out the real implementation of these declarations from 9 conferences in Belgrade. Then I was again, then a special envoy of UN Secretary General to serve chair on online movement. And I might say that Indonesia, regardless of some shortcoming of internal policy of Indonesia, which Madame Megawati is more competent to talk about, did good job, and they revitalized non-aligned movement, particularly on the field of putting as priority implementation of new economical order which was established in the 4th conference in Algeria. Then Indonesia chair initiate cooperation and dialogue with G8. And it was fortunate coincidence that Japan was in chair and Indonesia had very close relation. Then they accepted to receive chairman of non-aligned movement, President Suharto then, and he presented that. But later on, G8 escaped or say avoid to go on with proposal of cooperation on improving international relations and particularly on the field of economic and financial matters. Before I come back where we are today, what we have to do today, Madame Megawati Soekarnoputeri pointed out that the movement is still relevant, that we have still a lot of job to do. In contrary, that our values has to be reaffirmed. But before that, I will come on this again. I would like to tell you how I see what were the movement's main achievements and what was the main shortcomings. Despite its internal contradiction, the non-aligned movement did contribute significantly to international relations. Its decreased area of Cold War competition between the two blocs. The Bandung Conference, and after that, first, second, and third conference on non-aligned movement, carry out very strong effort and program for decolonization and declare an era of colonialism and imperialism. It kept the issue of democratization of international relations on the world agenda while promoting the equal status of big and small countries, not only in the world, but also within the movement itself. It anchored newly liberated country in the constructive foreign policy framework and helped preserve their cohesion. It promoted and implemented the peaceful coexistence of different culture, religious, and civilization inside of their movement, with some, of course, shortcoming. It strengthened the United Nations by making it main venue of most of its activities. It kept the issue of peace, disarmament, security, development, and democratization of international relations on the United Nations agenda. It cultivates and raises among its members the awareness that all countries in the world are interconnected and interdependent, and as such, and everyone is responsible for global progress and peace in the world. Let me to mention some weaknesses. The main weaknesses, to my opinion, of the movement was gap between non-democratic domestic policy in some countries and their democratic foreign policy agenda. Many of them did not practice in their domestic policy or in their bilateral relation what they preach and on the global level. Of course, we have to accept here one very prominent member of Nalai movement, one founding father of the movement, India. India was the largest democracy in the world and is today. India, with its own value, mean a lot for the movement, not only because of size, because of quality of internal development as country who has very low level of economical development. It was unique, and still India played a very important role, as well as in Indonesia, as big countries who promote equality inside of the movement as example that the world should be established and organized on the principle of equality. Of course, it is important to bear in mind the circumstances in which the newly liberated countries found themselves after the anti-colonial revolution, although these do not absolve them of their responsibility vis-à-vis their own people. Often, the predominantly military, autocratic regime were preoccupied with the preservation of independence and stability, mostly at the expense of basic freedom and human rights. Their focus on their integrity and independence was reinforced by the bloc's rivalry and the big power competition for sphere of interest and domination. The fundamental weakness undermined to great extent the credibility and the effectiveness of Nalai policy. But when we see the result, definitely Nalai movement play irreplaceable constructive role in international development. I believe that the main principle and goal of Nalai movement are as important today as they were at the time of its establishment. Peace and peaceful conflict resolution, economic development, nuclear disarmament, international law, coexistence of cultures and civilization, the establishment of new world order on the basis of the balance of common interests instead of the balance of fears yesterday. These are also the demand of the majority of the mankind today. We must see that the world has changed beyond recognition since the days of the establishment of Nalai movement, even since the end of Cold War. It means since 9 conference. The bipolar Cold War environment has given way to the globalized, interconnected, and interdependent world. Bipolar and unipolar policy have been replaced by uncertainty of shifting power relation. The new economic and political geography is multipolar, polycentric, reflecting the welcome rise and stronger voice in the world affair of the new emerging economy, including economy which were mentioned by Madame Soekarnoputeri. It means G20. During the last 4 years, the world has gone through the worst global financial crisis, recession since the Great Depression 81 years ago. The crisis is not yet over. The world has been struggling not only with economic and financial instability, but also with daunting challenges of poverty and hunger, climate change, environmental degradation, nuclear proliferation, and international terrorism. We may say that the world is in very deep, multi-dimensional crisis today. What is happened, what is taking place today on European level, it means within European Union, is only reflection of difficulties of complicated situation in the world as whole. We have today, fortunately, new situation that developing countries made dramatic movement forward in industrialization, in expansion, and today we have 51% of the GDP of the world belongs to the G77, which is, of course, 122 developing countries. This is already a new situation. Yesterday, I read a statement by chairman, outgoing chairman of the World Bank, Mr. Zilik, who said, until now, World Bank teach developing countries how they should work using experience from developed countries. Now we have to switch to try to teach developed countries how they may get out for their difficulties from experience of developing countries. This is completely new situation. The world is in transition. The world is in mess. What to do today then united? What is the problem of solving the problem? The main problem is not political consensus, not political will of the leading elite of the world. I would say practically of all world in general, but in particular on the most developed part of the world. We have to look for new reorganization of our world. It means not only international relation. We have to look for reorganization and correction of internal system in each country, including in its most developed countries. It means that after collapse of socialism a la Soviet Union, we have now not collapse, but very big question mark, how to go on with such capitalism. Of course, that this is one part of problem. The other in relation between countries. Very often, national problems are stopping and not making darker global picture in the world. Vice versa, global picture should not limit or should not diminish concrete ability of each country to carry out problem on their national level. It means that we have to establish more balance between national and global interest. We have to definitely give up from now a movement that the democratization of the international relation is strong prerequisite for domestic democratic order. I think that balance is necessary to establish on the side of the developing countries. It means non-aligned countries. But at the same time, we have to absolutely be aware, and most developed countries, that export of revolution doesn't work, but either export of democracy doesn't work, like we could see in Iraq and all other countries in the world. It means that country has to, small, big, be equally responsible. They cannot equally contribute, but they have to equally right to try. And achievement and contribution be, of course, different regardless of size, of development, of ability of each individual member of international community. Now is question, why is non-aligned movement relevant? Relevant is because we are looking all today for new order. We are all looking for new world. The non-aligned movement has not only obligation, even experience to work together with the rest part of the world for reshaping our world we live in. I would like to say that is open today. Yesterday, it was slogan of non-aligned movement that we need new order. When Cold War finished, then it was slogan of the European countries. I attend at the conference 1890 in Paris, when it was declaration that we are looking for new European architecture within or as part of the new world order. But of course, did not come out anything of that. If we are now all aware that we are in the same boat, if we are aware that we need new order, the non-alignment is very relevant to come with all its potentiality, with 122 members to be part of integral movement toward the change of the world, toward establishing new order. This is my point. And I think that today, when our founding father would see where non-aligned movement arrived, I think generally in global achievement, they will be very proud and very happy. Then we have to thank them for great idea, and we are happy that we have daughter and even granddaughter of one of the men who contribute so much for the world of today or yesterday, but which is value still relevant today. This is Madame Megawati Soekarnoputeri. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency. And now I would like to present Mr. Pramono Anung Wibowo, who is going to say a few words. He is His Excellency Speaker of Upper Chamber of the Parliament of the Republic of Indonesia.
Her Excellency, Madam Megawati Soekarnoputeri. Actually, Madam Megawati not just my leader, also my teacher, my sister, sometimes also my friends. But day by day, he is my leader and my teacher. His Excellency Budimir Lončar, and then Director IFES Zijad Bećirović, is that right? Our pronunciations. And then also His Excellency President Dr. Jožef Kunič, Slovenian Association for International Relations. I really appreciate this forum as an attempt to revitalize the tangible role of NAM in current international issue in order for its constructively contribute in creating the world internal peace. Actually difficult for me after Madam Megawati have the speech, completely everything, and also Ambassador Lončar. I try speech with the different point of view, with a different perspective. Because actually, non-aligned movement established by 1991, I born in 1993, means that I younger than non-alignment movement. And the 50-year establishment of the NAM is one of the oldest post-war international forum founded in the height of the Cold War. it survived the Cold War and charted a different avenue for interstate relations, and continue to the axis of play important role to the post-Cold War era. Since the end of the Cold War, there has been unanimity among its members about the persistent relevance of the movement in Indonesia, affirmed this unrelenting pertinence when chair in the movement in the 1992, and reaffirmed inconsistently at many past meetings, including recent ministerial meeting of NEM in Bali. Discuss about the Palestinian, and we support for the independence of the Palestine. Ladies and gentlemen, distinguished guests, from a membership standpoint of NEMs, the question is relevant no longer casts doubt. At the ministerial meeting in Bali, NEM member comprised of 120 countries with Fiji and Azerbaijan, who had recently joined. Furthermore, NEM membership has reached more than half of the United Nations. But the sound of the NEMs sometimes is not loud compared to the sound of the United Nations have the decision. However, in entering 21st century, NEM is facing new reality, both inside and outside. While NEM compromise at least developed and developing nation, domestic affairs in member states are prevalent, not only those evident recently in Tunisia, Yemen, Libya, Egypt, Bahrain. Other members are also suffering from internal political problems, including good governance problem, poverty, the internal problems, some extent unpredictability, influence regional and also international stability instead of creating conducive environment of international peace. Excellency, ladies and gentlemen, actually, for me, the question is about reaffirming fundamental value of the NEM and regaining its place in the world affair. We know the Bandung Principle delivered the ASEAN-African Conference in 1955 can be support of the NEM history. However, the interpretation of the NEM goal, its capacity, has been relevant for the contemporary world. But how NEM will survive and be able to regain place contemporary world affair? This question is a strong question. Let me pose my opinion regarding the question. I would say yes, it will, if it first diversity of the leadership of the NEM. Since 1991, NEM chair has been decided on geographical rotating basis. So far, 4 countries in Asia have assumed to be the chairmanship position: Sri Lanka, Indonesia, India, and Malaysia. And Iran is set to chair in 2012. Also, 6 countries in Africa, like United Arab Emirates, Zambia, Algeria, Zimbabwe, South Africa, and now Egypt. 1 from Europe, Yugoslavia, twice. And 2 from Latin America, Cuba, Colombia, and also Cuba again. NEM chairmanship and leadership need to go beyond this pattern. NEM may wish to anticipate the fact that the future, Chile, Jordan, Singapore, or Vietnam, or elsewhere, so chair and lead the movement if they wish to do so. Diversity leadership will enrich NEM leadership, NEM traditional leadership. Second, greater visibility in solving global problem in another important element NEM constant relevant. Critical to this visibility is leader innovation in finding solution. the chair of the movement might wish to use good office or advisory office, leader mission, leader special envoy, ad hoc task force, confidence building mission, or contact group in helping resolve global and regional conflict and dispute. The present situation in Libya, South Africa, North Africa, and also Middle East, and of course, protected Arab-Israel conflict seem to call for such initiative. Critical to external relation and global contribution of NAM and its member countries is realistic and pragmatic approach guided by the principle, in particularly in Bandung principle. Those principles are the soul of the movement that distinguish NAM from the other cooperation arrangement. Third opinion, my opinions, it is important for NAM to make more derivable in the future, both in the dispute settlement among its members and meeting their economic and development needs. Conflict or disputes still take place within and between some NAM member countries. Poverty remains a serious matter in many NAM countries. When compounded by conflict that are fully by elected threats, a small arm and likes weapon, freeing people from wants become to a very daunting task. NAM need to go beyond conference room deliberation in catering to the fundamental needs of the people of its member. It needs to go beyond the lengthy and this final document that are traditionally adopted at the end of NAM summit or ministerial meeting. Fourth, NAM will need greater unity of voice responding future challenge. Unity of voice also reflects strong leadership and strong cohesion of the movement. When a member state speak with one voice, it will have a better chance to achieve symmetrical result in its diplomacy. With the present of the future world where government is no longer the only actor decided the fate of the NAM, the cause of the movement will be strengthened when it enjoy unflagging support, let alone active participation from its people. Therefore, NAM makes also which explore greater contributions of business sector and also civil society group from its member countries from enhance of NAM cooperation. And the support of the condition mentioned above and relating effort to the improved NAM working method are essential. Indonesia chairmanship of the NAM in the 1992 lead to foundation for better working method so that the movement could be well celebrated in the wake of the post-Cold War era. The 21st century set to state for more essential, effective, and efficient NAM methodology. Finally, I think that all NAM member countries are called upon to ensure a seamless revival to movement into the new century. I am fully confident that this forum will remain pivotal to renew NAM. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency. Well, the time is running off, so we cannot have a long discussion, but nevertheless, please allow me to give the floor or to invite to the Ambassador of India, if I may give you the floor, because your country was one of the important, the founders of non-aligned movement. Sorry just to pick you up, but I think just, yeah. Excellency.
I'm sorry you've got me unawares, but I don't know what there is for me to add to what the stalwarts have said, Her Excellency, Ambassador, and the Speaker. Just 3 quick points I'd make for your consideration. The utility of NAM, its usefulness today, I think the best way to judge that is to visualize what the world would have been in case NAM had not existed. It would have just been a bipolar world, and the results of that, I think, are frightening. That's the first thing. The second thing, I think that even we, when we grow older, we try to rejuvenate ourselves. If that's the case with a human being, I think any organization which has crossed 50 years also requires to ponder and reinvent itself. And that reinvention, I think, has to be focused on the way the world is moving today, because more than political alignments, I think all political alignments are based primarily today on an economic basis. So it's time that NAM ponders on this to see how they can develop their bilateral trade, bilateral economic cooperation. And once NAM gets that economic focus and economic clout, then I think the world will take us more seriously. Thank you.